Good morning. Good morning. Hey, be seated if you would. Thank you. Boy, it sounded good this morning, amen. What a blessed morning already. It's good to be here. Good to see everybody out here. Good-looking folks out here tonight, or this morning. And I hope it's good-looking folks back out here tonight, amen. So, but anyway, good to see you. Good to have Dr. Wheeler here with us this morning. Well, we're just excited to get things started, get things rolling. I want to thank you for all of the praying this week. We had 4 cottage prayer meetings that went on Wednesday. We had a wonderful prayer time. Yesterday, I had a list, plumb full, from top to bottom, praying. Somebody was praying every hour, almost every half hour, all day long for revival. Amen. And now, friend, now we have a choice. And that choice is, do you want to be revived or do you not? Amen? Amen. Because the spirit is willing. It's the flesh that's weak. So I'm telling you, God wants to see us up and moving forward. And we're going to put our past behind. We've had a rough few years, but you know what? These last few weeks have been pretty good, amen? God's been really good these last couple of weeks. He's really kind of reminded us of how good He is, and the services have been wonderful. Spirit's been good. So listen, we want to continue that today. I just wanted to thank you. Take a moment to let you know how much I appreciate all of the hard work, everything that's been going on. It's been such a blessing. So I want to thank you. We are excited again to have Dr. Wheeler here with us today. Dr. Wheeler, this is a cup for you. I don't know, Mike, did you clean it up real good? Mike said he even cleaned it up real good. All right, so none of my spit is on that right there. So that is all for you right there, and we are excited. Well, I'll tell you what, if you are glad you're here today, let me hear you say amen. Amen. Now, you got to talk to this brother. Keep him fired up, all right? Mr. Wheeler, you come right ahead. Give him a hand if you would.
It's good to be with you guys this morning. I appreciate the opportunity. I honestly do. And I teach at Liberty University. I've been there now for, oh goodness, 13 years. In that amount of time, I've had somewhere around 33,000 students. I teach our large classes there, and it's just been a lot of fun to get to do that. I was an evangelism director for the Indiana Baptist Convention for a while in Ohio, and a pastor and all that kind of stuff. So, doing revivals like this was a big part of that for many years. And I'm actually serving as the interim pastor at Highland Heights Baptist Church right now. Dr. Hawkins, Ron Hawkins, is preaching for me this morning there, so I could be here. And anyway, I just appreciate the opportunity. It's a great honor to be with you. I'm going to ask you to open your Bibles up to Proverbs chapter 22. Proverbs chapter 22. And also, this morning I'm going to preach on the family. Tonight I'm going to share a testimony. Let me just assure you that you've probably not ever heard a testimony quite like ours. I'm not saying that braggadociously. I'm saying that just honestly. And I hope it'll be an encouragement to you tonight. Just a picture of how God broke us and changed us and walked us through some very, very difficult times. We have anyway, I'm not going to go any further than that, but just come back tonight, hear the testimony. This morning, I want to read from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. If you'll look at it with me, it simply says, "Teach your youth in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it." Now, your Bible may say, "Raise up a child in the way they should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it." I want you to read this off the board with me, okay? "Teach your youth in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Come on, say it one more time. "Teach your youth in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." George Barnum said a few years ago, he said, for most Americans, their family is their greatest joy, but it is also their greatest frustration. And so when we start looking at our culture, and we want to know why our culture is going the direction it is, the foundation of our culture is the family, and what's taking place in our families is destroying our culture itself. I want you to think about it. Just some studies that were done by the American Family Association. Only about 1/3 of American families will have one meal together each week. 12% of American families pray together. Studies reveal that the average father spends only 8 to 10 minutes a day with his children. That includes meal times and TV time. And that if you want to know why divorce is going the direction it is, think about this. The average couple spends only less than 4 minutes of uninterrupted time together every day. Everything in our world is pouring out at us. These things right here are taking our time. And they're our distractions, the draw of pornography in our culture is destroying our marriages. It's an interesting statistic about that is that well over 50% of young women that are teens now are approaching the addiction level with pornography. It's not just a man thing; it's a human thing. And so, how do we deal with what's going on with our families? What do we need to do? And let me just say this again. I believe with all my heart that the reason why our culture is being destroyed is because the family's been destroyed. If I were Satan and I wanted to destroy something, if I would destroy, I would destroy the foundation first, right? God created the home before He created the church. God meant for the home to be the place by which our faith was spread from generation to generation. God meant for the home to be a holy place of which He was honored in everything we did. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you 4 simple principles today out of this passage. First off, it says teach a youth, or it may say raise up a child. The reason why it says youth and child is because the age that it really is referring to is probably an older middle schooler, because that's the most influential time. We tend to kind of have enough understanding of the abstract at that point in time that we can actually begin to apply. That's not to say that all the years leading up to that are not influential. It is simply to say that he's writing this towards those young people. That's why our youth ministries, that's why we as parents don't need to just to overlook these days. That's why we don't need to pour ourselves into everything else but our families. But the first phrase there, it says teach. Or maybe in your Bible it says raise up. That's the imperative of the home and the family. It is written as a command of Scripture. It's not written as a choice. It is telling families this is what you are supposed to do. And there's 3 basic meanings to that phrase. Number 1, if you're taking notes, number 1, it means to put something sweet in the mouth of babes. Now, what does that mean? If you look at that closely, if you look at Scripture closely, it talks about us not exasperating our children. In other words, not creating anger in our kids. I was with shared gospel with a young lady recently, and she told me that her father used their faith to just beat them to death. He was a really strong predestinationist, Calvinist, and he actually told his daughter, he said, it's pretty apparent that you're not part of the elect, so there's nothing you can do to be saved.
Wow.
Because that is theological child abuse.
Amen.
It's theological child abuse. It really is. But see, what happens is he's using his faith to beat his kids upside the head with. We can't do that. That is not to say that we're not supposed to influence our children, but it is to say that as we do this in love. We have to do this in love. So when he says there to put something sweet in the mouth of babes, he's referencing that when we teach our children the Word, we do it so that they will enjoy that. They see the sweetness that comes out of that. Why? Well, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty obvious too as well. And that is when your children now are getting a little bit older, when they're getting into junior high and high school, particularly when they get to college, they're going to have friends, they're going to have professors, they're going to have teachers that challenge their faith at every corner, I can promise you. Everything in our culture does that. And so here's what you want. You want your daughter or your son, when they're a junior in high school or sophomore in high school or senior in high school or a freshman in college, and they have a professor or teacher that begins to challenge them on their faith as if Jesus could not exist, as if God is not there, and those kinds of things like that, and calling them foolish for that. You want them to respond in a different way. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Several years ago, my daughter, Kara, and I'll tell you her story tonight. Kara was born very premature. And when she was about 2 years old, I picked her up one day, turned her upside down playing with her, and I noticed 2 of her teeth were rotting out of her head because the prematurity, her enamel did not develop as it should. And so We went to the dentist said, hey, we're going to put caps on her teeth. This is what's going to have to happen. He said, but she cannot have a whole lot of sugar candy whatsoever until she gets her permanent teeth in. Well, we went home shortly after she got her caps on her teeth to see my family, and my sister thought that was child abuse. She just thought that could be horrible. So even though we told her that, my sister snuck around and gave her as much candy as she could. And the first thing she gave her was a sugar daddy. Yeah. Not the little ball. I mean, we're talking about one of the things you lick like this. My daughter had never tasted something like this. So we walk out, my mom has dressed her up in this nice dress and everything like that. And I walk out in the backyard and my daughter's sitting there and she's got this sugar daddy and she's going, she just licking, it's getting all over her face. I mean, bugs are flying into her, sticking, it's like fly paper, it's nasty. She's drooling it all over the place. My mom walks out there and she says, oh no, she's going to ruin her dress. And she starts to take that sugar daddy away from my daughter so she can clean her up. And my daughter goes, like, Grandma, you take that, you're losing an arm. Listen, when you want to teach your children and your grandchildren so that one day when someone comes at them and tries to take their faith, it's as if they pull back and go, no, you can't have it. I know it is real. I've seen God work. In my family, I know He is real. Because their faith is so sweet to them. It also means this. Not only does it mean to put something sweet in the mouth of babes, it means to build an altar. It means our homes are to be holy places by which we literally lay our families down on the altar before God. In fact, it's interesting, the phrase that's used here in the Hebrew is the same phrase that's used in reference to the temple. So think about it. There's no higher place in Jewish society than the temple. So when God in His sovereignty just breathed this out, He's literally saying, I want you to treat your home as if it's a holy place, like you're walking into the temple. It's not a place you hide in your sin. It's a place where you glorify God even in the hidden times and silence of your life. Just think about this. What is integrity? Integrity is being the same person when the lights are off as you are when the lights are on, right? Amen. But it also means this, a third meaning. Not only does it mean to put something sweet in the mouth of babes or build an altar, but it means to dedicate. Now the process of dedication took place when they would have like the Passover feast, and they would go in and they would take everything out of the temple, the lampstands and everything, and they would wash the roof and the walls and the floor and the lampstands. And what they were doing was before they laid the offering down before God, they were symbolically purifying the temple so that when the Holy Spirit showed up, when God showed up, He would be welcome in the presence. Because what they were saying was, God, we want you. We're symbolically purifying the temple because you are pure, because you are holy. And you're welcome in this place. I want you to think about that for a moment. What does that mean for a family? What does that mean for a family? Look at, just process this for just a second. Some of us, this very weekend, have watched movies off Netflix. We've brought things into our home. We've done this, and we've watched gratuitous sex, violence. You've done this on your computer, on your phone. You brought these things into your home. I want you to just think about this. What we have done, guys, is we have literally compromised our families on the altar of entertainment. It's true. Over the years, we have compromised more and more and more of what we think, what we will do and what we won't do. We need to rededicate our homes back to the holiness of God. Some of you are struggling in your families, and you know why? Because you're sending mixed messages to your kids and to other spouses. Because God is the only one that can make you one. And once you begin to go in the opposite direction of God, you become three. It's the truth. Guys, it's one thing. Let's think about this. It's one thing for Satan to sneak in a crack in the window, and he will. It's another thing for us to open up the front door, invite him to come right in, give him that privilege to be in our home, Sit right down, make yourself at home, Satan, and then pay him for being there. Oh, you're just a fanatic. No, I'm being honest. I've taught those 32,000 17, 18, 19-year-olds for all these years. And you know what they tell me all the time? We start talking about holiness and righteousness. Do you know the main reason why many of them are running away from God? It's because they don't see the consistency in their home to even connect back to God. Well, my mom and dad took me to church. Well, great. Guys, I read an old comic strip one time that says you could, sitting in a church no more make you a Christian. Sitting in a hen house would make you sprout wings and feathers and lay eggs. If all you're doing for your children and grandchildren is making sure they're in church, but you're not walking with them in the dedication process of life, they're going to choose to walk away. I mean, statistics don't lie. Josh McDowell uses a statistic: 94% of young people that go out of our youth ministries when they go to college walk away. Barna did a study a couple of years ago, found that only 20% of them 10 years later actually return. We're spending billions of dollars every year in our youth ministries. But the problem is we're entertaining them. And that's not really the problem. The problem is we can teach them everything we want to at church through our youth ministries. But if they go home and mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are not backing that up with them and teaching them in the same direction, they're going to choose you over church. Because we don't bring our kids to church to have them teach them about Jesus. We bring our kids to church because it is something we do together to all learn. But we have the responsibility to teach our children and grandchildren about Jesus. And I'm going to say something here too, and I mean this with all my heart. I know this is going to irritate some of you, but I want to say this truthfully. Men, we need to stand up and be men.
That's right.
We need to be the spiritual leaders in our homes. Some of you have more affection for your tree stands and your trucks than you do your families. I know that. I speak redneck. I grew up in that. I can interpret it. And I'm just telling you right now, someone needs to wake our men up to be spiritual leaders in their homes. I'm not saying, moms, you don't have responsibility, but if she's having to wake you up on Sunday morning to go to church, and that's all you're giving back to God, don't be offended when your children walk away. Mm-hmm. Study after study shows, if you've never read the book, Why Men Hate Church, go read the book. Study after study shows that the most influential relationship a child, whether it's a male or female, will ever have is the relationship with their parents and with their father. And listen, the statistics are astronomical. It's not saying that moms don't have influence over their children, but what it says is if dad is involved in any level of this, the statistics go out the roof. I speak at a lot of men's conferences, and I'm just telling you. Men, we need to be spiritual leaders. Mm-hmm. We don't need to just be good church members. We need to be spiritual leaders. We need to stand up and do the right thing. We need to rededicate our homes back to Christ. We need to love our wives like Christ loved the church. Mm-hmm. We need to model that for them, for the generation coming after us. We need to love our kids. If you've never read the book, The Blessing, by Gary Smalley, you need to read that book. Because he talks about it. When we started having daughters, I always thought we'd have sons. We do have a grandson now. We're having another grandson in July, so thank God. But when we started having daughters, I didn't have a clue what to do around daughters. So my wife started buying me all these books, and what we found out, every one of them, even secular psychologists will tell you the most influential relationship a young woman will ever have is whether she receives the blessing from her dad. What is the blessing? The blessing is saying, sweetheart, I'm proud of you. I love you. No man can have a better daughter than you. Mm-hmm. So many of us won't tell our wives or our kids that we love them because we think it takes away from our masculinity. My father was the roughest man I've ever met in my life as far as, he's a sweet, godly man. But, you want to talk about a man's man. He grew up in a place called No Man's Land in Tennessee, back in a place called Flynn's Lick in Jackson County, Tennessee. Where the number one, money maker in the county is probably moonshine and marijuana probably now. And meth probably too. My dad was an amazing, godly man. My last conversation I ever had with my father, I talked to him that morning. He died that night of a heart attack. I was going to church. It was on a Sunday morning. The last thing my father ever told me, he said, "Son, I just want you to know I love you and I'm proud of you." I preached his funeral 4 days later. Let me tell you something. If you think my dad telling me that he loved me did not make him less of a man, it made him more of a man. You can say, "Well, I wasn't raised that way." I can't help it if you were raised the wrong way. Because Jesus would never withhold from his children what they rightfully need. Ladies, I'm going to give you one shot here to help me. If you don't support me, don't ask me to do it the rest of the week, okay? You not only want to see that your husband loves you, or your father loves you, you want to hear it too. Is that true? Yes or no? Amen. It's the truth. Guys, if we're going to dedicate our homes to Christ, we've got to start with us doing the right things. Number two, look what it says. There's the imperative, then there's the initiation. Look what it says. It says raise up a youth, or raise up a child. It means literally an older middle schooler. When does it begin? It begins when a child is a child. Here's the problem, is that studies have shown over the last several years that men and women, both moms and dads, are spending more time away from the home than ever before. In fact, they're working more hours than they've ever worked. They're spending more time away from home than ever before. And they're basically paying other people to pour their values into their kids. And here's what's happening. Because they're not spending as much time, they're basically replacing themselves by buying their kids all kinds of gadgets. So they're spending more money than they've ever spent before on their kids, but they're not investing in their kids. So what we're doing is we're handing a phone to an 8-year-old kid and letting Hollywood raise our child and pour their values in them. It's the truth. We give them an iPad when they're 6 and 7 years old, and we pour all these things into them. Why? Because we don't want to have to spend the time with them. Come on, go to any restaurant now. Kids are running around everywhere because nobody disciplines them. It's the truth. And what do we do? What do we do? We raise up a child. We're not there to influence our kids. I read a study in the late 80s. I was in Texas, and they sent this to us. The convention there, I think, initiated the study of several thousand teenagers. And they asked them, what do you want from your parents and grandparents more than anything else? Well over 3/4 of them said they wanted their mom and dad's undivided attention. I thought that's probably not true anymore. Because I'm probably most of those kids probably want an iPhone 40, And they want a brand new this or that or the other. Until a couple of years ago, I woke up one morning, I was watching Good Morning America, and I saw they had about 10 or 15 teenagers from all over America, from all different nationalities, from all different places all over the country, north and south and everywhere, and they were asking them questions about their generation. Help us understand your generation. And here's what happened. At the end of it, the lady who was doing the interview, she said, I got one question for you. She had about a minute left. She said, there's millions of people watching. Your grandparents or parents are out there in the crowd. She says, tell us one thing. Tell us right now, where are we missing it with your generation? This young man, African-American young man, it's as if they were talking about this back in the green room. He looks at everybody and says, you mind if I answer this? They said, sure, go ahead. He steps out front, and this is what he says. Looks right at the camera. He says, stop trying to buy us off. We don't want your stuff anymore. We want you. We want you to take your calendar and clear it and spend time with us and invest in us. We want you. We want you. Guys, what we've been doing over the years is buying more stuff. Think about it. We're so materialistic. Come on, one of the biggest businesses in America right now is building these places where we can put our junk that we don't have room for at home. So we'll spend $100 a month renting out a spot to put our junk. Come on, if you don't believe that, when I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, as a kid in the 60s and 70s, if you had a garage, you were lucky to have something in it. If you go to the poorest communities all over America, any Saturday they got garage sales going on. And it's always the same stuff. It's got 5 thigh masters, 3 ab masters, and some silly, treadmill over here that some guy died on. He bought off eBay. It's all the same. Because we're entertaining ourselves by buying junk. And we're trying to buy affection. And so we've stopped having a relationship with each other. So let me share this to you. Young people aren't going to like this, but I'm going to say this. Don't you ever allow your kids to have their phone at the dinner table. You take times when you say, I pay for your phone, you put your phone away. Even if I don't pay for your phone, I'll break it, okay? You know why? Because you need time together. But you know what? You know why we don't do that? Because mom and dad don't do that. We were up in Charlottesville not long ago, and this man came in with 3 of his kids, and we're all sitting there around the table. We're taking my daughter to the airport in D.C. because she was flying to the Philippines for a couple months to work with handicapped children there. And we're sitting around the table just having a conversation, having a good time, and this man walks in, and the only time his kids ever said a word was when they gave him the order. And the rest of the time they sat around the table doing this. You don't have to do that. You don't. The one thing I've noticed about this generation, after 32,000, they don't know the simplest things. When we finish our class and they come up, they're into they've done their exam, I have them come up and shake hands with me because so many of them don't know how to look you in the eye and shake your hand. My dad used to take me out when he would sell farms and those old places where you'd have bologna and crackers and cheese, and he would take me to those men playing checkers, and he'd walk in and say, "That's my boy David." And I'd be 7 years old. That was a sign for me to go, "Yes, sir. Nice to meet you, sir." I can't do this now because their neck won't go past this. Guys, technology's a great thing, but don't let it steal your home. Don't. Take times, take days by which you put it away. Seriously. The addiction level of what's happening with this, it's amazing to me. And the pornography and everything else that comes with that. And you can ask any guy who's hiring these college students, they're telling us we don't want to hire these college students because they can't have a conversation. Because we've not had conversations with them. So put your stuff away every so often. Spend time together. Number 3 is the instruction of the home and family. Look what it says. It says, raise up a youth in the way they should go. It doesn't say would go. There's a lot of psychobabble out there that says that if you start disciplining your children too early, that they'll never learn to think on their own. So you have parents of 4 to 5-year-old kids saying, well, I'm going to let them make their own choices in life. That is the most chicken-fried stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. It totally is. And if that offends you, I hope it does. That is crazy. Are you kidding me? Studies don't show that those kids end up doing better. Studies show that those kids end up in jail. Because we won't discipline them. You know why? Because we have way too many parents that want to be their child's friend. They want them to like it. They're not supposed to like you. If I had a nickel for every single time my daughters are stomped away from me, I hate you, Dad, I hate you. They only hate you till dinner time. They're trying to manipulate you. And if I see another picture of a mom with her 14-year-old daughter trying to dress like her, I'm going to throw up all over the screen. Are you kidding me? Look at me. We're supposed to discipline our kids. We're not supposed to be their friend. We're supposed to discipline them because we love them. At my father's funeral, my brother told this story. He was 18 years old, come home from college. And he's sitting across the table with my dad. And again, my dad's this old country boy. And he's sitting across the table from him. He says, Dad, you know now that I'm a man. He's 18 years old. You know, he says, now that I'm a man, don't you think it's time that you and I build a friendship? To which my father looks at him and says, son, where are your feet at? They're on the floor. He says, well, whose floor is that? What's yours, Dad? So where are your legs at? One of the table. Whose table is this? Yours, Dad. He said, son, that food there, where'd you get it out? Well, the refrigerator. Well, whose refrigerator is that? Sure, is that. He said, son, when you drove in last night, whose car are you? Yours. Who puts the gas in that car? You do. Who pays the insurance for it? You do. Who keeps you in school? Well, actually, you do. He says, son, we're not going to have a friendship. We've got a dictatorship. Guys, what we've done, listen to me carefully. We have given our kids and our grandkids, we've given them authority with no responsibility. Because we want them to like us. I had a student walk up to me a few years ago. You know, some folks here have had me for class. And I have just a couple strict rules in my class. You stay off your phone, you stay awake. That's it. You don't, we'll kick you out. And we have. Just the way it is. And because I'm not going to fight with him to do that. You'll learn a better lesson after that. I mean, we'll just, you know, that's it. You're going to follow what we're going to do. And anyway, you know, I had a kid walk up to me a few years ago. I said, Dr. Wheeler, you know, when you told us the first day we couldn't be on our phones for morning class, he said, it made me so mad. So I didn't like you at all the first 2 or 3 weeks of class. He said, then I realized you're just like my favorite professor, favorite teacher in high school. He said he didn't care if we liked him at all. All he cared is that we respected him. He said, you know what I found out? I found out the more I respected him, the more I liked him. Same thing is true with our parents. Come on. If you played sports, what coach do you go back and visit when you go back to school? You go back and visit the one who's hardest on you because he got more out of you, right? He or she, right? Guys, we have to instruct. I walked out to church one Sunday morning and said, where you are, sir? There's a lady in my church named Marcy. And Marcy was crying. I said, Marcy, why are you crying? This was years ago. She said, oh, David, I got up this morning. I said, my girls wouldn't come to church this morning. I said, how old are your girls? 8 and 10. What? I said, who's the parent, who's the child here? She said, what do you mean? I said, Marcy, here's what I want you to do. She was in her second marriage, and they were staying home with their dad. I eventually baptized the father and everything like that. This is what I told her to do that day. I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home right now with your kid. And I said, I want you to open up their door. You tell them they got 5 minutes to get ready. If they're not ready, then you put them in the car, you bring them here, sit them on the back row in their pajamas. Next week, I promise you, they'll get up and come to church. They'll get ready. Well, that'd be child abuse. No. I guarantee you know what happened to Wheeler home when I was growing up? Every Sunday morning, my dad came in and knocked on the door. David, time to get up. I can just imagine one of those mornings. Yeah, you know, I'm really tired. We were up late last night watching Gunsmoke. You know, you and your mom have a good time at church this morning. Tell my Sunday school teacher I'll see her tonight. My dad go, boy, you got 28 minutes left. If I wasn't ready in those 28 minutes, my father would have walked in there, taken me out of my bed, put me in the car, drove me to church, sat me on the front row, and made me take up the offering in my Batman pajamas, all right? Because there was never any question or home who the parent of the child was. Hebrews talks about those whom he loves, listen, he chastens. That word there, chastens, means he disciplines. We always discipline out of love. You never do that out of abuse. We do that out of love because we care for them. But mom and dad, we all need to be on the same team, don't we? We do. We all need to be on the same team. It's amazing to me now that I'm a grandparent, because I always tell grandparents this, that, you know, and how many of y'all are grandparents here? Okay. My daughter was coming up, my daughters were coming up. We would go home and visit, and my youngest daughter, Kara, is mild CP. I'll tell you her story tonight. And Kara, we'd be driving home, you know, from Grandma and Grandpa's house, and Kara would be in the backseat going 20, 40, 60, 80. Where'd you get that money? Grandpa gave it to me. How'd you get it from Grandpa? Well, the first night I came, he gave me $5, and I told him if I gave it back to him, would he double it every day if I gave more hugs, and he did. Look what he gave me. I got it. Where did that come from? That man, are you kidding me? I used to have to beg to get a penny piece of gum. But here's the deal. Here's what happened is they would not discipline our daughter because of her CP. They felt sorry for her. But Kara's brilliant. She graduated from college. She heads up our 24/7 prayer ministry at Liberty. She's this really smart kid. We had to go home and tell the grandparents that either you start disciplining our kids the way you discipline us, you're going to have supervised visitation. That's it. Now, grandparents, that's not saying that we can't still buy them some things that, our kids don't mind that. But when they're at our home, we need to discipline them. We need to expect it. We all want to raise up godly kids, right? And we all need to be on the same team. Number 4, the impressions of the home and family. Look what it says. Raise up the child the way he should go, or train up and teach you the way that he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that's not a promise. It's simply saying that if you pour into your children the things of God, that when it gets to the point of them walking away, chances are great they'll come back. My sister did that. She ran off, got married, 18 years old. She was in her second marriage 9 years later. Married to a guy who was a drug addict. And one night, at 11:30 at night, I've heard my mom and dad pray many, many nights, crying. We hear a knock on the door. It's my sister. She comes home. She finally marries a Christian guy after that. And she's in church this morning, walking with the Lord. I've seen this over and over and over again. You see, it's the impressions we leave that matters. It's not the stuff we buy. Come on, the Tiger Seat bike I got when I was like 5 years old, I wish I knew where it was. I'm sure it's worth a lot of money. You know, the motorcycle, my mom and dad helped me get when I was in the 11th grade, a dirt bike. I don't know where it is. You know, the lime green 3-piece suede leisure suit my mama bought me in the 9th grade. Y'all remember those, don't you? The stacked shoes, man, that silk shirt. You had it on over. Come on, be honest. How many of y'all did that, guys? Come on, yeah. I got rid of every picture of that. None of that made a difference. Let me tell you what made a difference. When I was 7, 8 years old, my mom almost died of kidney failure. I watched my father love my mom, take care of her. He never missed church with us one time. When I was 10 years old, my mother and grandmother asked me what I want to do when I grow up. And all my friends were saying, I want to be a professional athlete. I said, I want to be a preacher. Of course, I ran away from as far as I could as a teenager. But you know what? I had a godly grandmother and a godly mother who prayed me back. And they never stopped praying. A godly dad. Those impressions don't leave me. It's not the stuff my mom and dad bought me that made a difference. It's the things they taught me. The little things over and over again. Watching how my grandfather treated my grandmother, and then realizing my dad treated my mom the same way. Like a fine piece of china. Not because she was weak. No, my mom can knock you out in a heartbeat, trust me. But because she deserved to be loved that way. I didn't know that God was preparing me that one day I would have a wife who would be very ill. And again, I'll tell you our story tonight. But God used my father to be that impression upon me. To learn to walk with God. To understand what it meant to love people. To care for them. That's what it is. What kind of impressions are we making on the next generation? Some of us in our homes, we're struggling because we've reached a point in our marriage where we're wondering, are we still supposed to be together? And let me answer that question for you. The answer is yes. God put you together. And if you'll trust Him, He'll keep you together. Debbie and I have been together 35 years. 7 years dating, that's 42 years. I'm 58 years old. I went on my first date with her when I was in junior high. And I can tell you, on this end, as many other people can tell you, it is worth it. It's worth it to wake up every day, your integrity intact, with someone you love. Now, I don't like her every day. And I know there's days she don't like me. But we've never stopped loving each other. Now we have kids who do the same. Debbie's family, her dad was an alcoholic, and he was an adulterer, ran around all the time. Her grandfather was the same way, and it goes back generations. When I got my family, it's the generational things is perfection and anger. We came together and says we're going to kill those generational sins the best we can, so we can raise up kids who love Jesus and who love each other. I told my son-in-law the day he married, I did the wedding, I said, Chris, and Chris is 6'4". I baptized him at Thomas Road. Chris is a big man. I looked at him and I said, Chris, I've been praying for you since 9 months before she was born. My first meeting with him in our house, the third date, was always with me. Even when my daughters were 22, 24, 25 years old. You gonna date him? Third date's with me. I'd sit across the table. Didn't have a gun, didn't need a gun. Just sat across the table and said, son, I just want you to understand how much I love my daughter. How much I love her mama and how she's been raised. And I looked at him and I said, Chris, if you're one of those guys that she's gonna have to wake up every Sunday morning to go to church, then why don't you just stop now? Because one day she's gonna ask, you're gonna come and ask for her hand, and I'm gonna say no. I said, and I think Dana will respect me enough to know, to trust that. I said, but if you really want to follow after God, if you really want to be that man that will love your wife passionately, which is what she deserves, and I promise you, I'll teach you, I'll love you, I'll stay with you, I'll support you, I'll hold you up. I will do that as long as it takes. He took that challenge. I'm going to tell you, there were a bunch of them that left. The good ones will stay, the bad ones will leave. I didn't want to pick my daughter's husband. I just wanted to make sure that the husband she had was the one she deserved. And young ladies, if my daughter were sitting here this morning, she would tell you, I know for some of you think, I don't want my dad to do that. She would say, shut up, yes you do. Because God orchestrated the parents, the family, to walk with each other, to protect each other, to love each other. What kind of impressions are we leaving? Let me share with you one story and I'll close. I was at a church several years ago, and a lady named Jeannie came up to me. She said, would you share this every chance you get? Her father, I talked about the family, her husband didn't get saved until their kids were a little bit older in their teens. He always felt like his kids wouldn't respect him unless they actually, wouldn't respect him unless they bought the best things. So he would always pay for stuff. He was always gone. He was never there for his kids. But he was always buying them the best stuff, the best cars, the best athletic equipment, the best home, the best this, the best that. But he didn't even know his own kids. He got saved when his daughter was 16 years old. He turned around from that. The day his daughter, 3 years later, moved out of the house to get married, they kept loading up the truck to move everything out to the apartment that she had moved to. Jeannie said everything went great all day long until the last load. She said when the last load was there, the sun was about to go down. She turned around and Carl was nowhere to be found. Jeannie simply said, she said, well, I couldn't let my daughter drive home in the dark. I said, sweetie, Dad will talk to you later. And she said she stood there and watched her daughter drive away from the house and never come home again the same way. She walked in this big old house of theirs and just called out Carl's name and nobody answered. And she walked through the whole house. There were no lights on except for a light in a walk-in closet in the back of their daughter's room. She said she walked across that floor, the impressions of the bed and the dresser and everything that were there, and brought back all those memories of all those times she spent with her daughter there, who just drove away, never to come home the same way. She said the closer she got to the walk-in closet, she heard a whimpering sound. She said she peeked around the corner, and her husband was sitting back in the back corner, just holding on to a stuffed animal. And she said she'd never seen him cry like that. He was just sitting there just bawling. I don't know if it's an animal, stuffed animal he bought her on a business trip, or if it just reminding him of his daughter, but she said he was just hugging it like this and just holding on to it. And she said she went over and sat down next to him and didn't ask a word. She put her arm around him and started crying with him. She said about 2 minutes later, he calmed down and she looked at him and she said, Carl, what's wrong? Tell me, please. This is what he said. He said, my baby's gone and I don't even know her. My baby's gone and I don't even know her. There's no sadder words than that. Some of you are going to have to go home today and call your children and your grandchildren, just let them know how much you love them. some of you have the privilege and the opportunity today to just walk across this building and find them. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do this morning. If you've never received Jesus Christ, your personal Savior, I would love to tell you how you can do that. Pastor will be here too as well. That Pastor, if you don't mind, I'll take care of this. You're going to spend time with your family, okay? But I'm going to ask you all of this building in a minute. I'm going to pray. I'm going to ask someone just to play on the piano, if that's okay. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you just to bring your family up to this altar and find a place up here, kneel over the top of them and pray over them. Dads, start being those spiritual leaders. Don't withhold that blessing. Look, this is not a time to let pride get in the way, Mom and Dad. I'm going to ask this, when some of these young families come up here, if you've got kids back in the nursery, why don't you go get them now? Let's go get them now. Bring them to this altar.